If you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights.
That's right.
And I made sure before I attended that meeting that I not only knew them, I had them memorized. And I stood and went back and forth with the deputy there. Very nice guy, Lieutenant Brooks. But he kept trying to trip me up and say, well, you're causing a disturbance, you're putting a crimp in our style. And I said, no, sir, it is my right to stand here and talk. It is the chairperson of that meeting who is putting a crimp in your style, officer. And by the time we got done arguing, I told him, I said, I'd have been through my speech by now if you would have simply let me talk. I informed him it was his duty to protect my rights, that he took an oath to the Constitution of both the U.S. and the state of Michigan to protect my rights. And much to my appreciation, we had a very long talk, and he had a much better understanding of what my rights were. And I've got to hand it to a lot of these officers because they do not get taught the Open Meetings Act in Police Academy. They do not get taught Article 1, Section 3 of the Michigan Constitution, that we have the right to instruct our representatives.
That's right.
And so I always give them the benefit of the doubt, but if I didn't know what I was doing and I stood up there and started off with that, I'll guarantee you I'd been carted away in bracelets. So someone else that has done that, back when we had that protest in December, we were trying to figure out who we could have as a speaker. And we didn't want to come off as too good for a number of the people that wanted to speak, but we wanted to make sure that whoever was there was effective. And probably one of the people that helped argue at the Michigan Supreme Court level that did more to change the lives of more Michiganders than any other person, Katherine Henry was one of those people. And I'm going to let her talk all about it. You're done listening to me. Here's Katherine Henry.
Well, that was really humbling for an introduction. Thanks a lot. And wow, it's a little different. I can't remember how many people we had here in the room the last time I was here, or even what month and year that was, but sometime since COVID started. So things have really changed, but unfortunately, not enough, right?
Yep.
And I don't know who all is in the room, so if you are a current public official or law enforcement, I'm not necessarily trying to insult every single person who serves in that kind of public capacity, but by and large, every single person in public office has failed us at every level.
Yep.
And I kind of had this whole concept of, some of the things that Joel and I had been talking about and what I wanted to share with you. And then, well, my whole case in Allegan County, if anybody knows about that, has been horrendous. And while dealing with that for the last 19 months, unfortunately I got news Wednesday that my case was moved yet again into July, so that'll be 20 months. And then 12 hours later, we got the news that that my mother-in-law passed away.
Sorry for your loss.
So, anyway, my case was moved, but we had already decided, well, we're going to go anyway because my mother-in-law is not doing well and we need to at least say goodbye. And we didn't get that chance. So, anyway, I wanted to make sure if we were going to come up here that aside from trying to see as many family as we could, I knew that I needed to try to do at least one event to try to speak to people and educate them about their rights, because if you don't know what your rights are, you don't have any. I couldn't have said it any better. And my whole goal, I've been working in the, fighting for rights for quite a while. I will tell you that when my husband and I got married, I was actually a liberal. So if you want to give credit to any of the work that I've done, can you stand up, super handsome man? So of course I've been.
I wouldn't say you were a liberal. You were a Democrat. Liberal is something else entirely.
I actually actively advocated for abortion. Doesn't get much worse than that.
I agree.
I was raised by a bunch of hardcore liberal women though, so I mean, give me some leeway here. I wasn't raised to know Jesus or anything like that, so at any rate, a lot of philosophical debates later. Somehow we still got married, and I don't know. It was a road, right? God uses a lot of things to be able to shape you and get you on the road you needed to be, and I'm really stubborn. If any of you.
No.
That's why we're friends, Andrea.
I know, right? Love you.
Love you too. It was honestly some really painful things, like we have many of you who know me. Do any of you know me though? Because I don't want to assume that anybody does know who I am. Can you just, or how about if you don't know who I am, can you raise your hand? There's a lot of you. Okay. That's more humbling. I guess I should have led with that. But anyway, for those of you who do know me, you probably know that I have a little daughter named Emma. And she actually normally would have been here, but I let her spend some time with her older siblings tonight because they live up here, and we live in Florida now. I kind of like DeSantis more than Gretchen. Anyway, I have no idea where I was even going with that. I had like this whole, what? Yeah, why did I talk about Emma?
You're introducing yourself to us.
Yeah, it was just like, the baby, I was pregnant with a baby before Emma, and I lost that baby. And until then, I had pretty much been truly a liberal in many, many ways. And Ione County Free Fair, the right to life, and they have those, what do you call those? Things showing the stages of babies and gestation and everything. And that was like one of those things that like cemented in my head. And it was around that time too, things like with Benghazi and all this other stuff started happening. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then I joined the Ione County GOP, which is not really a conservative organization. It was a little stepping stone to figuring things out. But at any rate, it's been a journey. And as part of that journey, I was always a freedom fighter. I just didn't know really what it meant. And I went to law school, and I've never had anything handed to me. So I had to work my butt off, especially when I was finishing college. I got pregnant with my son when I was 19. I was all on my own. His dad kind of special. So he wasn't there. Taking my kid around to class just to be able to finish college and then go on to law school with, my child was 9 months old when I started law school as a single mom. And I worked 3 jobs in law school, so it wasn't easy. But, I worked hard, and I did pretty well in classes. And I was even a legal research assistant for one of the professors at my college. Okay, so they respected me enough to let me have that kind of a job. Yet, I could tell you that I really didn't know the Constitution. I didn't know it. And you take constitutional law in law school, you have to, in order to graduate. You take Constitutional Law 1 and Constitutional Law 2, and you learn about liberties, supposedly, and you learn about powers. It's all cases, case law, okay? And you learn about it from the lens of what some people who don't really know how to read the Constitution have decided your rights really entail. Why am I telling you all this boring stuff? Well, we don't have rights if we don't know what they are. And how are you going to know what your rights really are? How many attorneys are in the room? Any? You're not going to admit it now if you are. 99.9% of attorneys don't know the Constitution. They don't. And I don't mean that to be an insult. I can tell you because I was someone who thought I did. And, for a while now, I've been admitted to practice even all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I've worked on cases for a while. I was working with the Great Lakes Justice Center, and I've worked with other organizations. I've represented Physicians for Informed Consent on cases all the way, to the Michigan Supreme Court. And, even then, and that was the beginning of 2020, if you're someone that ever needs encouragement, here's a God thing, because I don't often have it happen, but a really easy, clear message. But this one, there's somebody that I met years ago, actually when I was running for state rep, and she's somebody I met through Michigan for Vaccine Choice. I never even thought about Michigan for Vaccine Choice. What is it? Vaccine Choice? What is that? Is that even a thing? Do people have an issue with vaccines? It was like, when I was a kid, there weren't that many, so what did you really care? Well, at any rate, I got to know more and more and think about the issues, and I got to know one of these moms, Lori, and it was just a custody case, but it was about her 4-year-old, at that time, her 4-year-old child who is immunocompromised, and she had primary custody, but Dad wanted to make the child get all the childhood vaccines and all at once for this immunocompromised child. And she had an attorney, but hundreds of thousands of dollars later, and everything else, and things were appealing, and it's making its way to it had gone to the Court of Appeals, and that's when I got involved. And I knew I had never done an appeal by myself in my life, and the ones I had worked on were primarily in the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's a whole other set of rules. Well, first of all, side note, how are you supposed to have access to the courts if I felt like I couldn't handle a case as an attorney, damn well educated on the law? Yeah. I'm just saying. But at any rate, so I was like, I don't think I can handle that. And of course, she didn't have a ton of money either, so I'm like, well, I can't really pay people to help me. I'm just going to be struggling through this by myself. But I connected her with somebody, and she was doing the main appeal, and I came in to represent Physicians for Informed Consent, a nationwide organization. They're now against vaccines. They just like people to know what they're injecting. That's all. And so, and I'd actually I've been a member of their organization for a few years. Anyway, so I came in to do this brief, and I love using, no matter what the case is, I love using the other side's stuff against them, right? Their resources, their arguments, their facts, So, Court of Appeals, bunch of dummies, had this whole big thing about all the horrible things that vaccines, especially childhood vaccines, can do. How they could be, well, sure you can die, and sure you can have this, and there could be, and they put it all together, and I'm like, and yet you're coming to what conclusion? Which was that the child should go ahead, government should step in when the government already decided which parent should have primary custody. The government should butt in again and then decide the medical care for this child. These judges, who are, obviously doctors too. And the mom is immunocompromised too. And if you know anything about vaccines and shedding and all that stuff, that means bad stuff for both mom and the 4-year-old child. So anyway, I actually learned more about vaccines and medical freedom and things like that in teaching myself how to do, even an amicus brief at the appellate level then, and that was February 2020. So in 3 weeks, I only had 3 weeks, I had to do a crash course, and no one was able to help me. And I figured out how to do it and read all the books and the rules, and it was like a nightmare. And I was doing it for free, of course. But the more I dug into it, I was like, this is important, right? Not just for this child, but for this issue to be decided. That was February 2020. Is that not a God thing? I mean, look at where we are now. And our medical freedom, or everything freedom, but especially the medical freedom and the issues that have made it to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, the issues that are still being debated and brought in cases, and so obviously God was preparing me for a little bit, and my work is nowhere near done. But at any rate, I wanted to share that with you as a sense of encouragement that whatever you're going through right now, however hard it might be, you are being prepared for the next thing, because all of you, in fact, I think it was you, one of you, said you're each doing your part, you're doing what you can do, and it's going to take teachers and lawyers and doctors, it's going to take garbage truck drivers, it's going to take stay-at-home moms, it's going to take those who are retired, it's going to take those who are 16 years old, it's going to take everyone working together to get our country back.
That's right.
To get our rights secured properly the way that they were given to us by God and the way they were actually secured in the Constitution in the first place. It's going to take all of us working together, because there are really no good attorneys. We can't rely on judges and the justice system and attorneys to win these battles, right? So a lot of you said you didn't know who I am, so I'm going to kind of jump track for just a second as an example. How many of you, you're all from Michigan, I'm assuming. Is there anyone not from Michigan in the room? Okay. We just moved to Florida, okay. And you better know everything I'm going to talk about, so for someone who hates public speaking, I've spoken at maybe 1,000 events in the last 2 years, so. But, okay, so how many of you, if you're all from Michigan then, you've heard of Governor Whitmer's executive orders?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody that hasn't heard of her orders? Okay. The ones, where she's saying you have to close your business, you can't buy paint at Menards, whatever, right? The strip clubs and the abortion clinics can be open, but, cancer treatment centers or pregnancy resource centers or AA meetings, those can't happen, you can't be together yet. Those orders, that's the one I'm talking about. Okay. Well, there were actually a couple different cases that were leading the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, and I knew I needed to do my part. I knew there were going to be attorneys, but I just felt like God was calling me. In fact, it's the strangest thing. I get the best ideas in the shower. Like, you can't write it down. And when you have shampoo, it means you're shampooing, right? How am I going to remember this by the time I'm done? Oh my gosh. Google, can you hear me? Take a note. It doesn't work. So anyway, one day I had this college intern that was starting to help me, trying to fight for freedom, because GVSU was closed. So anyway, some random stranger, and her parents had found me in the work that I've been trying to do, and just generally educating people about, hey, his orders are crap, don't follow them, that kind of thing. Which of course, like Fox 17 and Wood TV 8 and all of them, they're like, oh, you want to interview you? You're willing to say that? Yeah, I am. But anyway, so she was over helping one day, and I came downstairs. She came over at first thing in the morning. She's coming every single day. And of course I couldn't pay her, because everything I do is for free. Her name's Ashley. She's going into law school, but might need, help with tuition, just if you ever want to help a budding law school student. But anyway, I came downstairs and I said, you'll never guess this. I wrote down on this piece of paper, and there was I don't even remember, 6 or 7 things. And I'm like, I think I'm supposed to write a state constitutional amendment petition. I'm supposed to argue, a case about these orders in the Michigan Supreme Court. I had this list, and this was April 2020. And lo and behold, I don't have to find that list to see if there's anything that never came to fruition yet, but I did. I wrote a whole state constitutional amendment petition. The Restore Freedom Initiative petition. It was the first petition circulated in Michigan to try to stop all this crazy crap. Before the Unlock one that got all the fame and glory, we had the Restore Freedom Initiative petition. Anybody heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, you. You're not gonna not hear about it. Come on. So I never thought in a million years I'd write one of those, let alone run it out of my house and end up having thousands of volunteers all across the state trying to get all these signatures. So that's kind of a crazy thing. Very unfortunate we couldn't get the signatures and get on the ballot, because none of this today would be happening, because we'd have a whole different set of actual concrete penalties for trampling all over the Constitution, but I guess if anybody wants to circulate a petition, you only need 435,000 signatures, you could start and not support you. But anyway, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but fast forward to the lawsuit the legislature decided to file against the governor, and the issues they were raising. In case you didn't know, the issue, you guys have heard about the lawsuit the legislature filed against the governor, right? I'm assuming. Anybody not know about that? Okay. It was publicized by conservative groups largely as like this great thing, right? They're going to do this. This is going to be amazing. If you've read their stuff, though, what they said is, we need to fight against these orders because we, the legislature, are the ones that get to tell the people what to do. No joke. The whole thing is, there's a separation of powers. That's in the Constitution, which is true. And so if you're going to make laws and impact people's lives, then it has to be the legislature, which that part is true. But that's where they put the period. And I was like, wait, what? You just want to make sure that you're the ones that can make the laws to take away all our rights. Which, by the way, if you don't think they would do that, look up Senate Bill 858 from 2020, and they did. They actually voted to codify 36 of the governor's then 58 executive orders in full. Republican-led legislature. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So, I decided I would get involved and I would be another voice for the people. And that was kind of, again, my start in all of this. And it ended up being a different case that I can bore you with the boring legal details, but it was a different case that actually made it to the Supreme Court where the decision was made. And well, of course, I was the only one that didn't get paid in the whole proceeding, but I had the best dang background, though. If you ever saw that argument, I had a beautiful wall behind me. It wasn't green screen either, it was awesome. But unfortunately, we don't have that house anymore, but it was great while it lasted. But I was the only one that came in as an amicus on behalf of Restore Freedom, the unofficial spokesperson for the people of the state of Michigan. That's how I told the court I wanted to argue. And they gave me oral argument time. And I was the only one that argued those orders were unconstitutional from day one. The legislature's attorney and even the plaintiff in that case, which was representing private individuals, they argued that those orders were perfectly fine for the first, I forget what it was, like 58 days or something, because the legislature was okay with it and had extended. So the orders were totally fine then. It wasn't until after April 30th that these orders became a problem. I don't know about you, but one day of the government trying to tell me I gotta close my business, or I can't buy paint, or I can't buy, equipment to fix my house when there's been a spring storm, or my kid can't go to school, or I can't go to church. I had people calling me that I don't even know, but they were reaching out to me saying, help me. I'm in a domestic abuse relationship. I was trying to figure out a way to leave, a place to go with my kid, and all the resources are shut down. And so we've been just leaving in the middle of the day just to go park in, April weather, right? Not very warm, in a church parking lot just to have a safe place to go. And then law enforcement has started to come and tell us we can't be here because the executive orders say that we have to be home. Help me, what do I do? And I'm not really a crier, but I'm starting to choke up just thinking about that, because I had call after call after call, and we all know about the nursing homes and things, the atrocities that happen there, and I'm like, this isn't right. And of course you have people that say, oh, well, you just don't want your kids at home, you just want your kids in school because you can't deal with your kids. It's like, have you even, that's not even the issue here. So not even for one day should the government get to tell you you can't go to your church, you can't hang out with your family, that you can't peacefully assemble like the American Patriot Rally, the first in-person rally on the steps of the Michigan Capitol on April 30th, 2020. Where's Adam? Okay, I just want to make sure, because, Adam and I were part of that American Patriot Rally with, who's that guy? Oh, Ryan Kelly, that guy running for governor, yeah. I mean, I have no idea what that was. By the way, that was the first time I ever spoke in public to a large group of people, ever. And I almost threw up. No joke. And I walked up to one woman that had supported me when I ran for state rep years back, and another one who was standing next to her who very vocally had opposed me because she didn't think a woman should be in office. Okay. And she wanted me to step out, so Jeff Johnson, the other guy who had my same conservative values, but he was a dude, that he could win. I didn't step out, but anyway, so no joke, I went up to her and the other woman and I said, you know what, I'm supposed to speak next and I think I'm gonna pass out, or puke, or both. Could you guys just pray for me? And they did. And I was able to not do either one of those two things. And I was able to go and speak, and that was the thing that changed really the course of history for me. So, again, I say that as I'm really nobody. I'm not a high-priced attorney that gets paid a lot. Look, did you see what I'm wearing? I'm clearly not paid the big bucks. These are all from Goodwill, and they're stretchy. So. But I'm a mom. I'm someone who was born, well, if you're from Michigan, right, guys? Okay. Way up there. So far that people that are down here and think they're from the UP, I'm like, psh, whatever, you're basically a troll like the rest of them from the Lower Peninsula. But, I grew up in Florida when my parents got divorced, but I came back to Michigan. I love Michigan. Some of my adult kids are here. My parents are here. My in-laws are here. My grandparents are here. I love Michigan. I always will. But Florida's warmer and it has sunshine. Yeah. But you guys can come and visit, by the way. But I'm just an average person from Michigan. Don't ever look at somebody like me and think, oh, they have a lot of degrees, they have a lot of education, they have whatever. Please don't ever think that. Every single person in this room is just as capable. I mean, look at this guy. Could you stand up again? I know you guys know who this guy is. Honestly, this guy right here. Dude, you've been telling me that for like 2 years. We talked about stuff, though, right after my Allegheny County thing started, and I was like, dude, remember, I was like, just let me get through this motion hearing. I'm filing this motion to dismiss. I finally get my hearing February 4th, 2021. The case will be done. Do you remember me telling you this? The case will be done, and then I can totally help you with this whole oath of office thing and the health officers, and we're going to take them down, but we got to do it well, obviously I've been a little busy, and that didn't work out because the case is still going. But he took off with it and did the best he could, and he's going to keep going. And for those of you who don't know about it, it's awesome, and we'll inform you. But at any rate, as he said, how did you word that?
I'm a dumb truck driver.
I'm not going to say those words. He's a truck driver, though, and it takes real people. And if anybody's ever wondering, because those of you who might know who I am, my husband Mike, he didn't go to college. Certainly didn't go to law school. He doesn't like most attorneys. I'm surprised we ever even met and got married. But he's just a dude. He's a machinist. He's a father of 4. He's a guy who's an American, and he loves God, and he loves guns, and he's the child. And heavy metal. He loves heavy metal. That's where we kind of differ. But if it weren't for him, there's so many things that wouldn't have happened. That intern I told you I had, this unpaid girl who just showed up at my house every day to help, she's just a college student, and I wasn't paying her a dime. And she would come every single day, and she would help me. It's people all over. Adam Heikela, and all the things that Adam has done. It honestly is, it takes everyone. But don't ever look at a government official or an attorney or somebody like that and think, I'm not saying be disrespectful or whatever, but don't look at them in any kind of awe or oh man, I should be nervous. I'm coming up against, what if I screw up, or, no, they're human beings, and I guarantee you, if you're at events like this, even just coming to 3 of them, you're gonna know your rights better than they know what the law is. So just remember that, if for nothing else. And I was actually going to tell you about like 3 other really awesome things, but since I totally derailed that train, I'm just going to go back to the main premise of your rights. So, something that, well, let me back up and say, about half of you maybe knew who I was. How many of you know about my Allegan County case?
A little bit.
Some of you, okay. Very briefly, that petition I told you that I wrote, I had 2 petition circulators who were in Allegan County, Layton Township, middle of nowhere, all of 3,100 registered voters. And I was the lead attorney. So they called me and said, hey, we have this deputy who's here telling us that we have to leave, otherwise he's going to arrest us for trespassing. And I'm like, what? I tried to talk to him about it on the phone. We weren't able to get to the same, a resolution. I was reading to him the law, and he thought there was more, and I'm like, no. Maybe we're just, whatever. I'll come in person. We'll talk about it. I'm sure we'll figure this out. I'll print off all the relevant laws. We'll come to a resolution, and then I'll be able to leave my circulators alone. So I showed up, and he was waiting for me. He knew I was coming. He decided he didn't want to talk to me about the law, literally at all. And by the way, there's video on my website, restorefreedomkh.com, if you ever want to look at what happened there. But I was on the phone with a friend of mine, Sheriff Darleaf, and yep. And I was talking to him about the situation, and kind of in awe a little bit about what was going on. Anyway, I got there, and the deputy clearly didn't want to talk about the law. Oh, if you want to talk about the law, you can argue that in your day in court. Wait, what? I'm here as the attorney. I'm just trying to tell you about the rights. So he ends up shortly thereafter calling, I think this part is all within 15 minutes. Mind you, I had my then 6-year-old daughter with me in the car. It was like 56 degrees. Sunny, but not good enough for her to be like out hanging around. So I thought, we're only going to be here like 10 minutes. She's going to sit in the car, eat her snacks, maybe work on some schoolwork, because she's homeschooled. Anyway, so I backed into the space, so she saw everything I was doing. And I was like all of 15 feet away from my car. So anyway, within 10, 15 minutes, he calls back up. So there ended up being 3 grown men deputies, fully, dressed and everything, because I'm such a threat. And so then at one point in the conversation, I was like, Dar, listen, I gotta hang up so I can start live streaming on YouTube, because something's happening here. They're threatening to arrest me now. So I wasn't obviously gonna leave my petition circulators to get arrested, and why would I tell them to even leave? They had every right to be there. They were not within the 100 feet that the law says you have to be beyond 100 feet from the poll, polling precinct door. 229 feet, actually, to be exact, is where they were. They weren't impeding traffic. They weren't even in the parking lot. They were in the grass. And they just had signs and a few American flags, and people would have to walk past their cars to come and talk to them about the petition. So, at any rate, though, he was adamant that the township clerk was the owner of this property, that it was private property, and that the owner had told us all to leave, so if we didn't leave, we'd be guilty of criminal trespass. What? So, after me saying, no, I'm not going to leave, I never even said no. The video shows when they were asking me, I said, listen, just give me 5 minutes to talk to you about the law. That's it. I didn't even use the scary word, Constitution. I just said the law. We're law enforcement. Let me talk to you for 5 minutes about the law, and then I'll go. And they said no. And then all of a sudden they decided they had to violently arrest me. Violently. I ended up bleeding, cut, bruised, contusions, which lasted for a year. They're dragging me. I'm like, at that point, I'm like, whoa! I had my daughter in the car. And so I'm saying what every mother would do, right? I'm like, well, they're not following the law, they're not following the Constitution, so screw that. Just let me go, I have my daughter. My daughter's in the car. And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, let me at least give my keys to Doreen or anybody who's here. Nope, they wouldn't let me do that. Like, my 6-year-old child's in the car. I mean, you can hear me screaming for help because I'm like, what country am I in? This is not the United States of America. These men couldn't possibly have sworn an oath to the Constitution. Who do I call for help when it's 3 deputies doing this in broad daylight on public property? Yep. Just a side note, if you're a public official doing your job, not violating the oath, but doing your job, you actually can't be arrested for anything other than 3 specific things. Trespassing is actually not one of them. And public officials include attorneys in the state of Michigan, because the State Bar of Michigan is actually a public body, it's not a private organization. So I was there in a public official capacity. They didn't care. They didn't care about the First Amendment, they didn't care about any of it, right? So they were going to cart me off to jail that day. They told me they were going to throw me in jail, that they were going to tow my car illegally, that they were going to take my 6-year-old daughter when they finally realized she really was in the car. They were going to take her and have CPS take her and I would never see her again. They wouldn't let me call my husband to come and get her or my car, but then they were asking me when my husband was going to get there. I've been in handcuffs. How's he supposed to know? I mean, could you let me call him? No. Could you call him? Well, sure, give us your passcode to your phone. Oh, hell no, I'm not going to do that. So, at any rate, and they never did let me call him, but enough people saw it live streaming because I no longer was live streaming at that point. Other people started live streaming, and enough people saw it, and people that were connected to my petition came. And well, one of my friends is 6'7", and he's kind of a menacing-looking guy, so that helped. And he knew rights, so he was talking about the Constitution as well. But enough people were there that they decided, well, okay, so we'll let her go and we'll just charge her. And that's the case I've been dealing with now in county. So I was initially charged with trespassing on government-owned property open to the general public during business hours.
Like January 6th.
It was great stuff. Well, we won't even go on to January 6th. Come on. It's a whole other thing. They decided to do a whole bunch of other things that violated my rights. For example, I'll tell you, when I finally was allowed to have an arraignment, because of course I said I need one in person. I'm hard of hearing, I need to read books, whatever. They said, well, we can't, we'll give you a date of December 4th. Oh, wait, no, you want in person, January 11th. 2.5 months after the arrest, just for the arraignment? Okay, whatever. I get there, Lori was with me, Mike was with me, and a couple other people. But that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the day they didn't even let them in the building of the courthouse because they were there with me. That's it. Not because they did anything wrong, not because they were threatening or menacing or anything like that, because they were there with me. So I'm there, and then no one was allowed in the courtroom. Some of my supporters had made it, that had watched the event that day. They made it to the courthouse ahead of time. They didn't know. The deputies didn't know that they were with me, so they were allowed to come in. And so they were in there in the waiting room, but no one was allowed in the courtroom with me. By the way, there's a state law in the books beside the Constitution. There's a very clear state law, MCL 600.1420, that says that every single proceeding, court proceeding in the state of Michigan has to be open to the public, except if it's a case of national emergency or what. There's a few exceptions in there. All those exceptions have nothing to do with my case whatsoever. A misdemeanor trespass case, no. But they didn't care about the Constitution in Allegan County. So and then they wouldn't let me file my motion to dismiss and have a hearing on that. I was supposed to have it that day. And the judge was like, oh no, I'm just here for the arraignment. That's not my job to go over your motion to dismiss. Wait, so I'm saying they didn't have the right to even charge me, and I'm in front of a judge, and you're asking me if I understand the charges, that are being brought against me, and I'm telling you, no, because it's not a thing. And I have the appropriate paperwork, and I'm not even being allowed to have the time to tell you my motion to dismiss. Yep, nope, you gotta wait for the next judge on that. Okay. February 4th comes, I'm finally given that date. They let them into the courthouse, or were you there that day? No, well, my husband was there. They ended up throwing him out of the courthouse. And again, I was not allowed a single human being in the courtroom with me. In fact, I even had standby counsel with me because I'm hard of hearing and they were wearing masks. And they didn't care that I couldn't read their lips. So they literally threw out the attorney that I had brought with me. The judge, before I even got to the table, before the hearing officially started, he said, I have the transcript and everything, and the DVD, which I'm not allowed to share with you supposedly because, I don't know why, but I will be held in contempt of court if I show anyone the DVD of this public hearing in the United States. So he literally kicked Greg out of the courtroom and said, yeah, I don't want any witnesses in here.
Is a murder about to happen?
Okay, that's cool. Oh, and then when I said I wanted to submit my request to get the copy of the DVD, I had it all prepared. I had the request ready to go, and I just needed a signature. And he was hiding behind plexiglass and had 6 masks on. So he still wouldn't let me approach, though, to do that. But when I was saying, because it wasn't, I had said something about because it's closed to the public, he interrupted me. Oh, no. That's not true. There's literally a sign on the door that says no one is allowed in. And you told everyone they had to get out, and I'm not even allowed an attorney. Okay. Oh, but we're live streaming it. Oh, okay. So everybody can see it? Oh, but it gets deleted the second the hearing is over. Oh, you're live streaming it, but you delete it, so nobody can see it, and they can't be here. Oh, and the media had shown up, and they were denied entry too. And they weren't allowed to tap into the feed either. They were allowed to get a copy, of the DVD for $20, the same as I had to pay for it. But they too were told that they could view it, but couldn't share it with anybody. The media. That was just the start. That they have done so many things to me. Here we are, 19 months later. I was actually supposed to have trial. What is the date today? The 8th? Next Wednesday was supposed to be my 7th trial date. Oh, trial date number 2, the night before, when we actually were here for court and trial and everything else, or in Allegan County anyway. They decided to add disturbing the peace as a charge. Did anybody ever allege I was disturbing the peace? No. But do you know what? In all my briefs, and I tried to appeal it to the circuit court and the Court of Appeals. They didn't think it was their job to take on a case like this. I had been arguing, though, that, and this is something that holds true for all of you, not just on government-owned property, but on any property that's open to the general public, Menards, Walmart, whatever, any property open to the general public, you cannot be charged with criminal trespassing, ever. I've been saying if you were causing a disturbance, there's a statute, which I actually cited in there, MCL 750.170, you could be charged with disturbing the peace, or if you're threatening someone, or whatever. You could be charged with those things. But trespassing is literally being physically present somewhere and somebody telling you have to leave. They can't tell you have to leave when everybody else is allowed to be there. That's why we have equal protection of the law. And the U.S. Supreme Court has very adamantly stated this since at least the 1960s. You can't do it. And where did they come up with a lot of this? Well, when there was issues of segregation, and a lot of the cases came up, and they were just trying to charge people who had a different skin color with disturbing the peace or trespassing. You can't do it. So just keep that in mind wherever you're at, in any freedom fight you happen to be on, or accidentally find yourself in. You cannot be held criminally responsible if you're somewhere that's open to the general public, and it's during the time the public can be there. Doesn't matter who owns it. So, at any rate, that's when they then decided the night before that trial to add the disturbing the peace. That was great times. So, of course, a couple weeks ago, when I filed my whole new bunch of motions to dismiss based on the lack of my speedy trial and the fact I never had the jurisdiction, all that other fun stuff, what did the judge do? Move it to July. I'm pretty sure that's a denial of my motion without outright denying my motion, to denial of a speedy trial. At any rate, I never knew all the rights that I really had until I started fighting against the governor's orders, until I went to write this petition, until I had this stupid case where literally 5 prosecutors that I know of in the Allegheny County Prosecutor's Office have touched it. Every single one of them has taken the oath to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions. They all have had their hand in violating and trampling all over my rights. Oh, now they're trying to quash 2 of my subpoenas. I subpoenaed, of course, the chief prosecuting attorney and the sheriff because, well, the prosecuting attorney told them they were allowed to arrest me that day. And the sheriff, I was on the phone with him on the deputy's cell phone while I was in handcuffs. How many people get that opportunity? I'd like to know why I was offered that phone call. But I took the opportunity to talk to him, and I'd love to share with the jury why and what we talked about. But of course, those motions, they're going to try to quash those. So, all of the people involved. I've had 2 district court judges involved. I've had 1 circuit court judge, and at least 1, if not the full panel of the Michigan Court of Appeals, that they just decided in a 1-sentence order, I hadn't convinced them that there was a need for them to take the case. What? Let's put it this way. I'm a constitutional attorney. At that point, I had already been on a lot of the news stations across the state for having been arguing against the governor's orders in the Michigan Supreme Court, and already been across the state in hundreds of events across the whole state for the Restore Freedom Initiative petition, and just answering questions from thousands of people that would email, call, or whatever with questions about things that were going on in their lives all across the state, and people all across the country, quite frankly. They knew who I was. If they're willing to do that to me, you think if you were sitting there, they would do that? Heck yeah. You? Of course they would. So, when he decided, I gotta tell you this, when he decided to let me go that day, with charges, of course, and being all beat up, and my daughter and I being traumatized, literally. I'm trying to leave, and he's got his cruiser parked in front of me this way, and I'm just sitting in my car freaking out, like, what just happened? I don't even know what's going on. And he walks up, and I'm like, oh no, what now? And I'm not really afraid of much, like not at all. But there's got to be some sort of amount of decorum or rules or expectations, right? So at any rate, he walks up, like, roll down the window. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need you, if you could just do a personal favor to me. No joke. Exact words. Could you just do me a personal favor and go back on your YouTube and tell people to make sure not to go to the courthouse, because we're not taking you there. Not to go to jail. And then just, like, shut off your video.
No.
I was like, okay. I don't know how I'm still on the live feed because you guys took my phone like an hour ago now, but whatever. Somehow it was still streaming. So, at any rate, okay, no, I'll tell you the best part. I was going to save this for cross-examination, but they're denying me the trial. So one of the deputies, this is in the afternoon this was happening, and he left my whole event, right? He walks, drives over to his own precinct, also in Allegheny County. He votes. He leaves. And he walks up to, there's another table with some other people circulating a petition. He walks up to them. I am so glad you guys are doing this the right way, okay? Because I just had to leave arresting this person who couldn't figure out how to do it the right way. And I'm like, okay. So what's your petition about? So they tell him all about the petition. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to sign all that. And he signs their petition. And the next day, I get the original signature, of course, because I wrote the petition that he signed. If that won't make your day, I don't know what would. But can't wait to do that on cross-examination. So what was it about that petition you thought would be so great? Being able to hold government officials accountable for violating their oath of office? The stiff penalties, the actual jail time, financial penalties they would have. What part did you like? But no matter what, remember that in any scenario you find yourself in, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, if you don't know your rights, you don't have them. But in any scenario, most often, in order to assert your rights, you are actually going to have to educate the people that are in the situation. Don't look at it necessarily as a fight. I didn't go there to fight the guy. I'll be honest, I was a little hot that he was doing this, but I went there with the laws printed out. What was I going to do, beat him up with the laws? No, I went there to help educate him. And I wanted to make sure this wouldn't happen again to anybody else. So you have to go into the situation, like Joel said, you have to have as calm of a demeanor as possible. I don't know why I'm getting all choked up about this. I'm not even crying, I'm just literally choking. But you have to have as calm of a demeanor as you can, but you have to stand your ground. Well, in order to stand your ground confidently, you need to know a little bit about what you're fighting for, right? And then why you have the rights to be there. Well, let's look at a couple of the things that really are the basis for all of that. No matter what you find yourself, whatever issue you find yourself fighting about, whether it's you're being told by your local code enforcement that you got to take your political signs out of your yard, not that that would ever happen. I know you're charged with disturbing the peace, that never happened, right, Adam? No. Being told or threatened with arrest because you're someone like Joel who's, wanting to speak at a public meeting as a member of the public.
How about cutting hair?
Well, that should be illegal. How dare you do that on the steps of the Capitol? I hadn't had a haircut in so long, and I couldn't even go that day. Come on, you should have given me advance notice, Angela.
It's not illegal, it's the right to work state.
So, it's, no matter what the issue is, remember, anybody know what the 9th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says? The 9th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Anybody know? Now don't cheat. If you have a Constitution, don't take it out. Okay, how many of you have heard about the 10th Amendment? What is that commonly referred to as, like the term?
States' rights.
Oh, states' rights.
But there's also people rights in there too.
Okay, but no. There are no rights. If you have it, you can take it out and cheat now. The rights, there's no rights written into the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment talks about power. So whatever powers that the people have given to, you give, basically it's saying, where there's certain powers we're giving to the U.S. government. And there's, if we didn't give them to the U.S. government, and if the Constitution didn't prohibit them from being given to the states, then, we'll give some powers to the states. But we also are reserving powers for the people, because or retaining powers, I think is the exact word. Because people are the source of power that's given to government. You can't really understand what that means, though, unless you look at the 9th Amendment first. And dare I say, it's actually the most important. Because what it says is, the enumeration of rights in this Constitution, I'm screwing it all up. Yeah, basically, I used to have it verbatim. Oh, you got it?
I can memorize, or not memorize it. The enumeration in the Constitution, comma, of certain rights, comma, shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
So the main premise is we start with rights, because retained by the people. We start with rights. And we wrote the Constitution in a certain way to secure and protect certain rights that we had seen that, well, gosh, if there's a monarchy or whatever, if there's a government body that's out of control, they're going to try to make us quarter soldiers. Sorry, guys. They're going to try to make us quarter soldiers. They're going to do all kinds of things to search us or seize our property or papers. They're going to deny our ability to speak freely or to have religious practices or whatever, right? All the things that are in there are because of specific, look at the wording. It's because of specific instances where they had seen these rights being trampled. So they're in there for a reason. But you get to the Ninth Amendment, and the Ninth Amendment says, okay, we've listed all these. These are super important. But don't forget, we get to keep all the other rights that God gave us, and it's the government's job to protect all of those unenumerated rights just the same as the ones we have enumerated here. Then you go to the 10th Amendment and you talk about powers, which is funny that we refer to the first 10 amendments as the Bill of Rights, because there are no states' rights. There are no rights being talked about in the 10th Amendment because rights are given to us by God. Power is given or authorized or shared by people. We come together as a society and we share or bestow authority to act on behalf of us to people that we elect to do certain things. That's power. The state has no rights. No government official in that capacity has rights. No government body has rights. None. Ever. They might have power or authority. We, as human beings, have rights. And for anybody, I can't imagine in a group like this, anybody would ever think that your rights don't come from God, but in case you're worried about the separation of church and state, those words aren't in the Constitution. And the U.S. Constitution is very clear in the preamble, talking about we the people of the United States in order to secure the blessings of freedom, right? Blessings, where do blessings come from? But of course, the people of Michigan were even smarter. And the preamble to the state of Michigan doesn't even have all that other stuff, and it uses some better terminology. We the people of the state of Michigan, grateful to Almighty God, and earnestly desiring to secure our blessings of liberty or freedom, I can't remember which word is in there, to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution. That's how our state constitution starts. Everything comes after that. And it also, in the state constitution, Article 1, Section 1, all political power is inherent in the people. It's inherent in us. The state has no rights, ever, and has no powers, ever, unless specifically granted in the U.S. or state constitutions. Sure, there can be some really stupid-ass laws that give the governor or the legislature or any government official power to do something. They don't have that authority. That is not properly bestowed to them because no law can give them any right to act if the Constitution does not allow it. Ever. So I've heard a lot of freedom-fighting groups and individuals talking about, not only states' rights, but then, local governments. Oh, that's a job for local governments. Local governments have tons of authority and control. No government has sovereign authority over us. We, the people, have sovereign authority. And even the Michigan Supreme Court in 2018 in the Citizens Protecting Michigan's Constitution case, the Michigan Supreme Court said they understood that we, the people, retain ultimate control and sovereignty. I don't know why that wasn't followed since then. or since we wrote the Constitution. But those are some basic things. So no matter what government agency you're fighting, no matter if it's something to do with your driver's license or business licensing or something to do with haircutting, or anything, political signs from your local, your city council or the county commission or anything, right? They cannot act unless they have specific authority that the U.S. or Michigan Constitution allow them to do. That specific thing. So if you don't remember anything else about what I've said, other than how really awesome I am and we should be friends, if you don't remember anything else, please remember that. Whereas you have the right to do basically anything else that you want, as long as there's this general rule of thumb, you're not supposed to exercise your rights in a way that is infringing on the rights of somebody else.
Exactly.
So you can't own property and decide you're going to do a bunch of remodeling and then you have a bunch of debris and garbage, and so what are you going to do with it? I'll just throw it on the neighbor's property. No, you can't do that. In fact, the whole purpose of government, is to enable us to live together in a society where we are not trampling each other's rights. Their job is to protect our rights. Every single person in government. If they're not doing that job, that means that job totally shouldn't even exist, or they're not doing the job correctly.
Yep.
So that means 90% of government officials shouldn't be in their position because their position is stupid. So I think that's the main thing when Joel and I were talking with bad cell phone connections in the middle of nowhere around here. I wasn't sure if it was you or me, Joel, but and he's often talking to me while he's in the tractor or a truck. So, but I was driving from Belding, one metropolis to another, right? So, at any rate, I knew that that was one thing I really wanted to share with people because, again, I'm just like you. And even though I've been doing this fight for over 2 years now, specifically in the context of this very freedom fight that we're doing and handling yet today, that thought, even the 9th and 10th Amendment stuff, didn't sink in until I was interviewed by, he's in California, right? Alan Myers? Okay, so for the Republic, my buddy Alan Myers, he's got this radio show in California, but it broadcasts nationwide, and he's not an attorney, but he loves the Constitution. And he loves having people who love the Constitution on his show to help educate people. So anyway, he wanted to interview me about the first 10 amendments. And so for some reason, he wanted to start with the 10th Amendment. And I was like, I don't know what about that conversation, but I was like, no, we can't start there. We have to start with the 9th Amendment. And he's like, okay, sure, be weird about it. And so we discussed the 9th Amendment and then got into the whole concept of rights versus powers. And he, since then, and I've been on a show several times since then, he's like, yeah, we have to remember that. That's really important. All the years I've been doing this, I never thought about it. And quite honestly, that was a bad thing because until that moment, until he said he wanted to start the conversation on the 10th Amendment, I never even thought about it either. That was like, what, a month ago?
Maybe 2 months.
Okay, 2 months ago. And that thought never really occurred to me. It's something I knew, but it never really occurred to me. But think about how important that is. The government has no rights. The government can't own property for its own benefit. The government can only, and this is in case law, which is not a thing, by the way, but this is well established, government cannot own property for its own benefit. Any property the government owns is for the benefit of the people. Doesn't mean you have equal access to all of it. Do you want to really have everybody have access to airports, every single aspect of airports, or jails, or municipal hospitals, or things? No, we recognize there's certain places where it's understandable that there needs to be a certain level of not public access, right? It's for a legitimate purpose. But by and large, you have the right because you're a person made by God, you have the right to access property that's owned by the people unless there's a specific legitimate reason why the government is limiting that access. But the government has no rights to own property. The government has no rights to do anything. The government is not an entity that, we can talk about Romans 13 later, but the government is, as an entity, does not exist because God said, oh, I'm going to create this and give them rights. No, that's not equal to us as individuals. Not even close. So I could go on forever about, well, anything in the Constitution, but I want to make sure that anybody who came here, I don't know why I can't talk today, but that if there's something, especially, let's start with this, if there's anything that I've said that sparked you thinking about something and it strikes you as, that can't really be true, I want to start with those questions. Does anybody have a question that I've said something you're like, that just doesn't seem right, is that really true? Does anybody have a question like that?
Question of clarification. Now, which one is the 9th and which one is the 10th?
The 9th Amendment comes first because we the people have rights. Government can't come before we the people. So think about it that way.
Yeah, so that's the one that says the separation of the government can't interfere with rights that even ones that aren't mentioned, or is that the 10th Amendment?
Yeah, the 9th Amendment is the one that says even those rights that we don't spell out or list, the government still has to do its job. We still retain those rights.
Okay, yeah. And the 10th one says one's not given to the state, power's not given to the state or given to the people. So 9th is about rights and the 10th is about powers, right?
Yep.
9th is about rights, 10th is about powers, and it really 10th is talking about, well, we give powers to the federal government or to the state government, or we reserve them to the people. Yeah. Did that answer everything?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking in particular, like, I attend the commissioners' meetings, and oftentimes we have people come in who know the Constitution, and they spell out what the Constitution says, and why the board should consider, what they're asking for based on the Constitution. And the board acts like you are talking a foreign language, we don't want to hear it, it means nothing here. And they're government, I mean, they are close government, so, yeah, you go in there and you talk, but they listen, and they act like they don't care, they just tolerate it, and then
Thank you for sharing.
nothing ever comes with it, so, really, what power does the Constitution have in a situation like that?
I'd like to add something to what she said, and
Hold on just a second, because I'm going to lose 3 things that I wanted to say on that. You have paper in front of you, I think, or a phone that you can write down. I don't have that, so I'm going to lose
I got
this.
it,
But,
don't worry.
First of all, I want to tell you, and I was trying not to give you too much of the backstory for those of you who did know me, but for those of you who don't, I actually started speaking up at the end of March. With March 13th, I can tell you March 13th, 2020 is the day the governor announced she was going to close schools for 3 weeks. I know that. I remember exactly where we were sitting on our couch. That might have been the last day we ever got to watch TV in that house. No joke. Not that we're TV addicts, but, and from then on I started doing research, because I knew it was going to be bad. I did not know it was going to be what it was and the scale that it was, but I knew it was going to be bad. But as I was trying to fight the fight, I talked about the law. I never, in March and April, never mentioned the Constitution. Why? Because I knew people would look at me like I was cross-eyed, or like I was speaking French, or like I was this crazy person. And so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try to reach people where they were at and see if we could, handle things that way. Even on April 30th at 11:59, or 1 minute later, after coming home from the Capitol, I made a post. And mind you, at that point, I may have had like 1,100 Facebook friends. I had never posted a live video at all in my life. I never had I don't even know, like, well, Instagram or any, what the cool kids have, right? I hate social media, and I'm not good at it. I'm really not good at being cool either, ask my children. But, you know, so I just made this little I think it was a 1-sentence post on my Facebook page, and I just said, you know, something like, it really is over, Michigan. The executive orders are no more. The legislature did not vote to extend. I was talking about the law, right? The 1976 law that allowed the legislature to extend. I didn't talk about the Constitution or anything. I just told people about the law. That was the day that post was seen by, I'll just say, the lead attorney for a supposedly conservative Christian organization that I've been working with for years. And I got a call from him saying, how dare you post that? And I'm like, what? Well, and I still had that opinion of him or of judges or whomever, like, oh, he's the one that's been around doing this for many, many years. He knows all these things. You know, I don't really want to, like, challenge him or anything, but I kind of, in the conversation, grew a little bit more confident, and I'm like, but wait, but you're not saying I'm wrong. You're saying what? Oh, that's not the way that we do things. Oh, that's not what, you know, the police would want to hear, or that's not the way people would understand it. Wait a minute. So you're not saying I'm legally wrong. You're just saying that's not how it's done. Oh.
Yeah.
I lost respect for that man that day. I never once worked at that organization ever again. And two of their attorneys went on to do all kinds of stuff with Stand Up Michigan or Call the Barber or whatever. And by the way, made a lot of money, I'll just say that. But didn't really believe in the Constitution. They wanted to play the game because that's how you do things. Not because they're trying to game the system or they're politicians, but well, you just got to follow the unwritten rules. No, you don't.
That's how we got where we are. Yep.
That is. As far as, so I started that way. But, and I guess you could say I gained traction because then a lot of people, I mean, that, from then on out, I mean, no joke, in May 2020, my Facebook notifications have no longer worked. If you've ever tried to message me on Facebook, I have not seen it. My own sister forgets that. I see that every now and then it will show me someone has sent me a message, and I'm like, I can't even open the dang thing. It broke it. So I can't, you know, but that one Facebook post, and it wasn't even about the Constitution. Don't be afraid to necessarily reach people where they're at if they're totally in the wrong place. They gotta be in remotely the right region for you to be able to try to reach them where they're at and bring them on board. But if they're not in the ballpark, screw it. Tell them the truth and just go with that. And do your best to try to bring them up to speed, but it's their learning curve. That's not your problem. And as far as what power does the Constitution have, well, again, I didn't talk about the power of the Constitution. I said it's going to take we the people, every single person, those little Norton kids over there, and everybody else. Oh, yeah. Well, I already told you. I was going to tell your mama. I mean, that you don't remember who I am, but whatever. So, at any rate, it's going to take everybody doing something. How many of you have heard of Ottawa Impact? A few. How many of you might have heard of Joe Moss? Okay. He is one of my best buddies. He's like my brother from another mother. And he both to Ottawa Impact. He's one of three, I think, 2 or 3 that really initiated the idea and then took a lot of what we were doing with Restore Freedom and wanted to make it local with just the county, whereas what I was doing was statewide. And what they're doing is amazing. And it's starting local, but it's having a huge impact. In fact, well, I won't spoil his secrets, but there's a lot happening. Even I was surprised to hear last night some of the things that are going on. And they decided they're going to challenge, get at least a majority. They have well over a majority, 9 of the 11 seats on the Ottawa County Commission, that they have people that they're putting out to challenge the incumbents, Republicans, who like to mask children and force vaccinations and close schools and, you know, shut businesses down and all that kind of fun stuff. It's it was born out of his house. So the things that they've been doing, and he's not like this rich guy, he didn't have a ton of money himself, he just had this game plan, and it's working. And you could do anything, anywhere. I mean, look at what Joe's, everybody, there's so much to do, but if you're looking for something, if you're not very creative, or you're worried about how to do it, that game plan, so to speak, that way of doing it, as soon as we have the elections, they're going to really roll out and show you exactly, listen, this is what we've done in Ottawa County. And if you haven't heard about it yet, check out their, sign up for the newsletter or whatever. They've gotten stuff, I mean, you wouldn't believe the stuff. Let me just tell you one example. Ottawa County, one of the most conservative counties in the entire state of Michigan, the health director had on the Ottawa County website some big long PDF or whatever, pamphlet thing, whatever, talking about sexuality of children and how, children are sexual beings from like 3 months old, and at 5 years old you should start experimenting sexually with your siblings, and I could go on and on and on. That was on the Ottawa County website. Ottawa Impact ended up getting that pulled down.
They don't have an oath of office either. The health officer doesn't.
So that was the last thing I wanted to get at. So there is a way to do things. You just got to keep working at it, even if you feel like you're all alone. Look at me. Honestly, how many, and I really don't mean this as an insult, and not because, I'm just so awesome. How many attorneys are out there really willing to risk getting arrested to defend the Constitution? I've never met one. By the way, I was the only one in U.S. history to get arrested and then elected on the same day.
Wow, that's kind of a record.
I was elected to trustee of the 7th largest township in the state of Michigan that same day. Didn't campaign either. It was no fun. So you can do it, okay? And Joe's not an attorney either. And Joe really hadn't done anything in politics, I'm going to be honest. I don't think he would tell you that. But oath of office. Every single person who works in government, let's start with Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution, says that, it kind of uses certain wording, but that's the start of the oath of office. It's required. Then you go to the Michigan Constitution, Article 11, Section 1. I might be getting rusty. There's a 0.5% chance I'm getting some of this wrong, but you get my gist if I'm slightly wrong about that. But I'm pretty sure it's Article 11, Section 1. And that says that, there's that state constitutional oath of office, right? That you then have to swear to support and defend the U.S. and Michigan constitutions. But if you go to the Michigan legislature's website and you do a search for keywords and do the quotes around oath of office, you will find there are countless laws that actually require an oath. And MCL 15.151, I only remember because it's, 15.151, it's just a bunch of numbers in the pattern. But anyway, if you go to that says that if you even volunteer for the government, let's say you just volunteer once a month to clean up, help the janitorial department of your local school. You are covered by this, and you're supposed to. You're required to take the constitutional oath of office. You could be a garbage truck driver for the city of Lowell. You have to take the constitutional oath of office. You could be the governor of the state of Michigan. You could be a local township clerk. You could be appointed to your position. You could be elected to your position. It could be volunteer. I served on the Downtown Development Authority. I've served on a planning commission. I've served as a precinct delegate, as a township trustee, state committee woman for MIGOP. I've served in a lot of capacities. Every single one of those, and most of those, of course, are volunteer, you have to, by law, take the constitutional oath of office. There is not a single person that works in the state of Michigan in any level of government that is not required to take the constitutional oath of office. And there are laws on the books, and I've done some videos about it, and you can go to my website and get links to all the other social media we have. We will have a new website soon that clears up and makes it easier to find things. But we've talked about this in videos that there's a procedure, there are laws that talk about, well, what if an officer has not taken the oath of office? They are not legally in that position. And there are laws that specifically lay out what you can do. And we will finish the project because most, say, health officials, the local health department officials, say 82 out of 83 in Michigan, they don't think they need to take the constitutional oath. They are not legally in that position. So, yes.
It's MCL 52.141. The powers and duties of the coroner are transferred to the health officer. And the coroner is listed in the Constitution to take an oath of office.
But MCL 15.151 says doesn't matter what you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You could be anybody working in government for free, paid, whatever, and you have to take that oath of office. So, anyway, I hope, there's not a Staples Easy button to give you, otherwise I would have retired, a year and a half ago. But they're all three truths. You gotta be willing to try to reach people where they're at, try to be respectful as you can and inform the people that are doing wrong or following the wrong, but don't give up. And you have to remember, to educate them on some of the most basic things. Like Joel went to that meeting and he's like, the Michigan Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, the people, all political powers inherent in the people. In Article 1, Section 3, we have the right to instruct our representatives. That stuff was great. When he told me he actually did that, I was like, dang, good for you. No joke, you gotta be willing to do that. You also have to remember, they're likely not going to follow the Constitution. They're going to look at you like you got four eyes, and that's okay. You got to stand your ground, and you got to educate everybody around you, and you got to make it so that you're going to that city council meeting or county commission meeting or whatever, school board meeting, and you have to be willing to be a small group, even the one person, until you become a small group, until you become a larger group, until you become something like, this group or Ottawa Impact, and you really start making an impact. So, do you want me to answer any more questions?
I have some candidates. Can we come back to that?
Absolutely. And even if I've been cut off from the mic and I'm still here, if you have questions about the Constitution, please don't hesitate to ask me.
Candidates, I have to get scooting here in just a little bit. Something I wanted to say real quick to summarize what I think she said did an excellent job of. Government is instituted for our benefit. And what happens when it's not for our benefit? Well, you can go to the French government before the Revolutionary War. They executed over 40,000 people by the French guillotine. And who ran that French guillotine? The Committee for Public Safety. So just think about that. As for candidates, Tom Norton, I think you got the longest to drive. Do you want to go ahead first?
I got the kids. Actually, I think Tom's the other Tom's only 10 minutes closer than anything. I go first I got the kids.
Tom Norton, he's running for representative for Congress.
I got that.
Yeah, I took off the hand raise. So I had hand surgery about 2 weeks ago. My joke is that I was driving around the city of Grand Rapids showing Democrats my appreciation for gas prices and my finger got stuck. In all honesty, though, I was helping my wife in the kitchen, which is actually a bigger joke, and I cut my tendon. But I can move it, so I can actually wave, but I only move it as far as the doctor has, and I got to take it off every little bit so I don't get stiff. Anyway, I am running for Congress. I was running against Peter Meyer, as most of you know. We actually won Barry County last time, and Barry County now in the new district is the 4th largest county for this new congressional district. Our proponent is John Mulinar, who Kevin McCarthy is putting another $1 million behind on there. So he is going to vote for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. He just avoids saying it. He won't say anything about the January 6th prisoners. He's still saying he's going to look into it. and I've seen him at multiple events say this on this page. Here's the thing. When us conservatives are agreeing with Bernie Sanders, there's a problem. 5 of the first 11 amendments of the U.S. Constitution have to do with due process of law. If your constitutional rights are being violated, you need to sit there and either acquit these people and let them free because their right to a speedy trial has been drastically infringed. Period, end of story. But I also like to make sure, and this is a nice little fun exercise, I like to break it up a little bit. This is a quick survey just to make sure that I'm in the right congressional district, just to make sure that there's a big differences. So these are some differences between my opponent and myself. So how many of you know about the NDA bill, Bill 4350, that had taxpayer-funded sex changes in it and red flag gun laws? Okay? How many of you support taxpayer-funded sex changes? Show of hands. Nobody yet. Okay. So John Molinar voted for that bill. Big difference between him and I. I would have joined the other 100 Republicans that said, no, we need a clean defense bill. And you cannot be a conservative of conscience and sit there and not defend the values that you believe in. Now, if you want to go and, change who you are, I don't want to pay for it. So, also, how many of you support Bill 2741? They threw the Haiti Act in there. It was a Health and Human Services bill that included Joe Biden's crack pipes. Does nobody supports crack pipes? Catherine, can you be the...
I don't even support the Health and Human Services existence.
Oh, there we go. I think we're in agreement. John Molinar voted for that bill, and he's also in the committee that actually helped make the bill and voted for it out of committee. Another fundamental difference. And then, how many of you like taxpayer-funded windmills? He brought them to Michigan. He tries to say that he didn't, but I can show you the roll call votes for all of this if you'd like to see them sometime. 1.5 cents per kilowatt, $4,000 a month of your tax dollars. He sponsored it. He's the one that's destroyed the image of mid-Michigan. I got the bill with him doing it. And he had they tried to clear it, but I didn't get that one off. And then the other part, how many of you in here support the $40 billion of Ukraine?
No.
Nobody in the district. He voted for that as well. Here's the thing. I don't care about Ukraine.
No.
Let the Russians and Ukrainians blow each other up. The only reason I want any involvement is to make sure China doesn't invade Taiwan. So we spend $2 billion a year guarding M60A3 tanks, U.S. patent tanks. Beautiful tank. It was designed to blow up Russian equipment. It's actually better than what the Russians are using. We spend $2 billion a year to maintain it and keep it up. We have 4,000 M113 center. We should have just done a Lend-Lease program, sent them to Ukraine, given George S. Patton a smile from the grave, and this thing would have been over already, where they would have had equipment in a week. We would have saved $40 billion that we wouldn't have spent, and $1.5 billion a year for paying for the shipping. And then when this war's over, they can purchase them for a couple billion or not. But there are ways to help without blowing money. Out of that $40 billion, $18 billion went to Ukraine, $22 billion went to U.S. government contractors. So John Molinar got max-out checks from the different PACs and special interest groups. You're fighting your own tax dollars. That's what you're up against. So what I'm running to do is I actually want to restore stuff for once. I want to weaponize Title IX funding because I'm fully opposed to Title IX funding. I think we need to get rid of the Department of Education and hand it back to the states. But Republicans, every single time the bill comes up, don't know how to fight back. So here's how you weaponize it. So Democrats start agreeing with us on the 10th Amendment. Let's require the Constitution and the Pledge of Allegiance in every public classroom in every university that receives Title IX funding, and let's make sure that people go to the bathroom in which they were assigned at birth. If we put that in the bill, how many of you think that the Democrats will join us in getting rid of Title IX funding? We need to start to fight back and fight back with ideas. We need to propose English as a national language. The enumerated powers allows Congress to set policy for naturalization. That's what it allows us to do. And it's not racist. What's racist to me are kids coming over here legally and being crippled by us immersing them in the language of their native country. And when we do that, we set them up for failure. They are denied the American dream. And the American dream is not this house or a car or anything else. The American dream is the work ethic that my father gave me to be able to actually succeed and go to the places that I've done. The American dream is to make sure that my kids will go further than me. So every generation is propelled to that next step. That's what the real American dream is. And in order to do that, Republicans have to grow a backbone.
Yep.
End of story. And they don't want to do it. They sit there and they vote for something, turn around, look at you, and blatantly lie. And they think that's acceptable. So we are running against him. He's spending millions of dollars. We had about $5,800 to go for me to be able to do the AV mailer. I have paid for my own digital ads. I have paid for the radio ads that are launching next week myself. And I am running for a pay cut. But 10 years ago, it would have been a pay raise. And the reason why I've been able to do that is because I busted my hind end because my father gave me the work ethic necessary. I'm the only one in this race raised on a farm in a farming community. I am the only combat veteran between the two of us. I've built a suicide prevention program for veterans. I did 177 cases before I quit doing it. And I've told this story to a few people. Anybody know why I quit doing it? Because I was a borderline alcoholic and got a DUI. But given the same scenario, I would go help that same veteran again and sleep in the bed of my truck. So it's called lessons learned. But I admit it. That way people know that all of us have skeletons. Nobody is perfect. Is anybody in here not a sinner? Anybody? Okay, well, I don't get any yes or no's on that. But we all learn from every single mistake. Every mistake we make in life, we learn. We become better people. And when we embrace that, that teaches us who we are. It's just like some people baptize their children at birth. For me, our kids were baptized 2 years ago, but my wife and I decided that they would choose to be baptized. You cannot come to God or to Jesus without your own decisions. And that's the type of stuff we have to teach our children. And it's mistakes that my wife and I have made in the past that has been able to make them better than us. And it's amazing because they were quite quiet for a little while here. But the biggest thing that we need is we need your guys' help. And right now we have a lot of door-to-door volunteers, and hats off to Berry County. You guys have completely redecorated, and I appreciate your guys' help. So a round of applause for all of you. Well, the one thing we need, if you got your cell phone, this is what we need. I need help with another $5,800. That's how much I'm short. And I started the week $22,000 behind for an AV mailer. If you guys can donate anything in order for us to do that, that's what we need. The website is tom.gop. None of it goes to the GOP, though, because they don't have a backbone. Matter of fact, the other reason I'm running is because how many of you in here know that there's a full spinal replacement surgery in Germany? They can go through and replace every disc in your back. The surgery's just over a year old. It's a real one. I'm hoping to send Kevin McCarthy there to see if it works. But that's what we actually need your help with, is to be able to do that. And I know we got other candidates. Everybody was listening real quick. So what I'll do real quick is I can take 3 quick questions, I think. That way it's real short, and then we can probably let, I know, Representative Albert, he's, I think, 10 minutes from my house. Just got him up the road in Rockford. So we got a huge district, and we're working on it. Questions real quick?
Hey, Tom.
Shoot.
I wasn't given permission, but
I'm going to do this. So I've actually known John Molinar for 14 years. We actually went to the same church in Midland. He is a wonderful man. I know lots about him. Good guy. I love him like a brother. He's great. I've known this guy for 8 years, and he's not perfect. And neither is his wife. I would vote for him any day of the week over John. He told you a tiny piece of the reason why, but I'm not afraid to tell people like it is, to tell you the truth, and maybe my opinion doesn't matter to you, but I know both of these men personally. And if you're in the district, if you're at all questioning, because John Molinar, he shows up and he's got a nice smile and he's very gregarious and he believes he's helping people with how he votes. He does. 100%. I believe, and I know better, obviously. No. But I know that this guy is a much better chance for us to be in Congress than John Molinar. John Molinar's had his opportunity. So since none of you had any questions, I have to share that.
the last two quick things I'll cover real quick because these are two other ideas, and then we'll go ahead and do that because these are the other questions I get, other ideas. So how many times people are tired of hearing Republicans repeal and replace Obamacare, right? They fail us every time. They've lied to us. Here's a health care plan. It's real simple. Let's remove state lines like the Constitution says and allow you to purchase health insurance across state lines. Let's remove the caps on health savings accounts so that you can make sure that your children inherit them.
There you go.
Let's make it so that the government can't steal that health saving account so that your children can have it. Let's make it so you can go to your church, you can go to your job, you can go to your community and form a co-op to purchase insurance at a bulk rate. And if we did that, you could afford health care. When it comes to drilling, where are the Republican members of Congress proposing new refineries, oil drilling, so you don't have to choose between your medicine, your health care, and your work? He hasn't done that, but now that I've said it, and a couple people in here have seen it, I guarantee next week he might finally propose something. Heck, he didn't introduce vaccine choice until he had an opponent. And I've been out there fighting it for a long time. And lastly, real Social Security reform, something Republicans hate to talk about. We need to go to partial privatization, like what Chile has. That nation, the world laughed in the early 90s when they proposed it. Today, they retire at equivalent of $45,000 a year for their economy. What that is, if you're a bus driver or you're a parent, and at 61 years old you pass away, right now all of your Social Security is stolen by the Republicans and Democrats, and they spend it on pet projects. That Social Security fund is bankrupted by everybody who spent the money, and I don't care who they are. And that's a problem for me. Let's make it so that at 61 years old, if you pass away, the majority of your money that you paid in is put into a real lockbox and left to your family, your children, or your spouse, so the federal government can't steal it anymore. It is time that every generation can propel itself forward by us restricting the government enough to get us back our money, our rights, and us to practice our own personal faith without fear. And if you're not getting shot at, and there's no mortars coming in, and you're not getting stabbed, guess what, folks? It's a good day. And that's the type of fight I plan on bringing to Congress. So go to tom.gop. We need all the help we can. And is it okay if I hand it over to Representative Albert?
Yes.
Well, good evening. How's everybody today? My name is Thomas Albert. I'm the state representative of the 86th House District, which is portions of Kent and Ione counties. I'm in my third term, and I'm running for the new 18th State Senate District. So I grew up in rural Kent County. I went to a small Catholic school called St. Patrick's in Parnell, which is just north of Lowell. And my kids there are now fourth generation, so I'm very proud of that. After there, I went to Belding High School, and from there, I went to the University of Michigan. And between my junior and senior year of college, I went to Officer Candidate School for the United States Marine Corps. That was in 2006. After I went back, finished my senior year, on the same day I graduated, I received my commission. In 2009, I was an advisor to the Iraqi Army. I came home. It seems a bit cliche, but I did meet my wife about 6 weeks before I deployed to Iraq. I came home, and probably about that next summer we got married. So then I used the GI Bill, went to Michigan State. Then my wife and I had our first child. That was 10 years ago now. I worked as an investor at the state pension fund, and then in 2016 I ran for state representative. And since 2016 I ran for state rep, and I've been a state rep ever since 2017. Now, one thing I can tell you is my time in the Marine Corps has prepared me for the challenges that we face in Lansing today. This term, I became the appropriations chair in the Senate. In the House. If you're not familiar with that, that's the person who's the lead for the money. They control the power of the purse, at least for the House. And as soon as I became appropriations chair, I publicly said to Governor Whitmer, you will have as much input in the budget as the people of Michigan have in their daily lives. And we held that position for months. And it was when somebody with some backbone finally stood up and started to say, enough, we're not putting up with this anymore. And we kept sending her bills, sending her supplemental bills, and she had to sign some of them because some of them were for school funding. We put conditions on that school funding, like, hey, you have to actually have kids in person to teach if you want some of these funds. And it worked. You know what we saw throughout the state? We saw schools bring kids in person before spring break. They were going to wait till after. We saw schools that were doing 5 to 10 hours a week move up to 20. We got kids back in the classroom because we had some backbone. And that's what we need. And that's what we need in the Senate. That's what I'm going to continue to do in the Senate. I have a true, proven conservative track record. And I'm not just going to go there, play along to get along. Not going to do it. I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing. Stand up for people's rights and make sure we can push back for any type of government overreach that we see. If you look at the radical left is doing right now, they're not being very shy. They're being pretty open with what their goals are. They want to overturn our values. They want to change our way of life. They want to uproot our Constitution. And I'm not going to do that. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a strong supporter of life. And I've done whatever I can do to help preserve our Constitution and preserve liberties and life in the Senate. So in short, my campaign is about defending liberty and restoring freedom. And one thing, since I feel like I have a little bit of time, there's 3 things I've done in the budget. Because right now with my role, that's the tool I have to fight back. So there's 3 things that I've done I just wanted to highlight so you can see how we can be creative and how we can use the power of the purse to restore our liberties. So first off, you guys remember last year when Berry County had a mask mandate in place for kids in schools and then it went away? That was because of the language I put in the budget. It gave the County Board of Commissioners the authority to withhold the funding. And the health departments got scared. And what's interesting about that is, if the order was really about safety, if the order was really about protecting kids and doing what was right, why did they back away right as soon as money got involved? That's an example of something I've done and I'm going to continue to do. Another thing, we don't have a vaccine passport or vaccine mandates at the state level with state government or local government funds. You know, our police officers, a lot of them are very conservative. How many of those do you think would have quit if they were forced to get the vaccine? A lot. And so we have in the budget, and this was signed into law. This has full effect of law. This is not something that the governor line item vetoed or that she's not enforcing. This has the full effect of law. We cannot use state resources to either implement a passport system or even allow a third party to access any type of data that the state owns to implement it through a backdoor process. We effectively shut that avenue off. But here's one I'm most proud of. And this is something that, thank you. Last one is something that I've been learning about, and this is something I wish I would have known about earlier, especially in my first term when we had a Republican governor. And what it is, it's about life. And this is something that's extremely, extremely important to me from my faith life and where I'm at with moral teaching and the way I think we need to fight for the kind of life we want to have. You know, what kind of country do we want our kids to have? And so what we did is I introduced a bill, and it prohibited Medicaid dollars, so tax-funded dollars, for being available to abortion providers. So in effect, the common term is defunding Planned Parenthood. That's what we did. We didn't just do it for Planned Parenthood. We did it for all abortion providers. So this year was the first time that the House actually passed a budget where abortion providers were fully defunded. So this is something that it's really bubbling up. If you see, there's an expectation that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. There's a lot of other stuff we have in there that's pro-life as well, like funding for pregnancy resource centers. We had $10 million to promote adoption. What's very interesting is that Governor Whitmer vetoed a lot of this stuff last year because she said it didn't support choice. No, it did support a choice. It didn't support the one choice that she wanted. So that's what we're going to keep fighting for. That's what I'm going to keep fighting for. And again, my name's Thomas Sullivan. I'd love to have your support in the Senate race. And Happy to answer any questions. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Mike right here. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, can you tell me what the Republican caucus right now, where are they at as far as ending critical race theory in the state of Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, if you look at what we've done in the school budget, there's only so much we can do. And that's why it's critical that we have school board members that are going to enforce the way the law is written. What we're seeing is a lot of school board members that aren't standing up for their communities, and they're just basically letting the superintendents and the administrators do whatever they want, carte blanche. Yes, sir.
I think it was back in about 1970, there was a ballot issue to that effect to allow Article 8, Section 2 funds to be followed to a private or religious school, and it was shot down at the time. And the last several years, there has been so much critical race theory that have been injected into our schools, and it seems like just recently there was a ballot issue that's going to appear for legislatures that would extend their terms and stuff. That a ballot issue to that effect. Right now, you guys are limited as to how many terms.
Yeah, that's a bit different than the critical race theory in school. I actually voted no on that.
And I was kind of wondering, the legislature saw fit to put forth something like that on the ballot. Could they also see fit to maybe, let's try that 1970 thing again?
I think what you're talking about is the Blaine Amendment, which prohibits public funds for going to private schools in the state of Michigan. Is that what you're referring to, sir?
I think that Blaine Amendment was what, 17?
It would have been in the,
65 or something
70s,
like
it was in
that?
the 70s.
Yeah. But anyway, there's been about 18 states that have modified their constitutions to allow for taxpayer dollars.
The difference in why that's not, why we can't put that on the ballot as a legislative body is because it takes, it's either 2/3 or 3/4, I think it's 3/4 of the legislature in both chambers to pass that proposed constitutional amendment, and then it goes to a vote of the people. The Democrats are never going to vote in support of allowing public funds to go to private institutions, so we won't reach that higher threshold.
Will be hot and heavy on those legislators that attempt that. And it's pretty obvious that the teachers' unions, the upper echelon, I'm not talking about just some of the teachers, because they're red-blooded patriots just like us, but in the hierarchy, you had the president of the American Federation of Teachers and the president of the National Education Association, both publicly endorsed to impeach President Trump. And by virtue of that, we know where their loyalties lie, and it's not with our culture and our heritage.
Yeah.
And our country.
And then, just to back up to your original point, though, it is very concerning with what we're seeing in our public schools. Not all of them, but in a lot of cases you're seeing it. And it might not even be the entire school district. It might just be one administrator in one school is pushing things. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis, and it's hard from the state legislative perspective to have a blanket policy and put it in effect everywhere. That's why it's crucial. That's exactly why we have local school boards. And that's why it's critical we have good people on those school boards to make sure that they're watching what's going on and making sure. Because if you look at things I'm hearing in Lowell area schools, the policies they have on the books are good. It's just they're not being followed. So they need people there who are actually enforcing them.
Yeah, Candace and then over there.
Well, given your stand on school boards and how people have gotten there, where do you stand on decertifying the 2020 certification of Joe Biden as president, given the amount of election fraud that has been proven?
Yeah, there's no process. Like, there's nothing as a state rep I can do to decertify the election, especially 2 years later. We have a board of canvassers, that's how the process goes through.
Right, but wasn't there also a Republican slate that was put out there alongside of the Democrat slate, because it was pretty evident that there was nonsense going on?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that we saw that were very troubling. And what I've been trying to do from a legislative perspective, especially through the budget, is try to implement policies. Here's an example of how I've been trying to use the budget to implement good policies for elections. One of the biggest problems we saw in the 2020 election was the Zuckerbucks. That had a huge influence on the election. And it was wrong with what happened. Here's a good example. The ability to ballot harvest in the state of Michigan is illegal. However, there is a loophole. If you are hired by a clerk's office or an employee of the actual government, you can go out and ask for the ballots. So these Zuckerbucks were used in order to hire people to actually be like a get out the vote apparatus for the Democrats. So what we've done in this budget, at least in the House passed version, is we have set up a grant process for local governments to access funds to fund the operations from the government, so from the state government to the locals, to fund operations for elections. But there's a condition. If they accept those funds, they have to agree they will not accept any funds from private entities. So that's the avenue I'm going in, to try to restore democracy.
What is your stand on the Dominion machines and what's been proven about their ability to be compromised?
I mean, again, this is an example of Dominion machines. I have voted on legislation to ensure that they cannot have internet access capability, and it's been vetoed by the governors. These are types of things that we've analyzed what the problems were in 2020, we put it in legislation. The problem is we have a governor who vetoes it. If you go on my website, I have a list of, 15 bills that we voted on in the House, and a good number of them have been vetoed by the governor. She actually, when we sent those to her, she actually went to an NAACP meeting, called us racists, and then vetoed them. So it's a highly politically charged issue, and the governor is doing whatever she can to mobilize her base, if you will. But the one thing she's not doing is using facts and truth to make her decision on what she's going to sign and what she's going to veto. There was one question over here.
She left. We'll move on to the next.
Oh, okay.
In the interest of saving time. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Philip Joseph.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm literally going to be maybe 2 minutes. I know a lot of you guys know me. Great presentation tonight. It's actually really appropriate. I was emailing some potential constituents back and forth. They were talking to me on the doorstep, and I told them I have about 10,000 other doors to knock on and to email me. And they were talking about our responsibility in Christianity involved in politics. So I'm literally just going to read you my reply and just be done, because it's been quick and it's appropriate. So I said, I would like to mention that as most people don't understand American politics and how it is designed to function. Most people think that politics is something that a bunch of politicians do and everyone else just does what they say. In America, we, the people, are the foundation of the government, which is what she's been saying all night. In other words, the average citizen, someone even like me, has every right to interject into our political system, which means that politics is really just a way for the average person to be represented in the creation of our laws. So in the end, I am not suggesting that I or we gain political power. Like she said, I am simply living under our Constitution, where we, the people, are able and expected to participate in our government. I'm a Christian every single day of the week, not just on Sunday. And if I happen to represent my community in Lansing, I will do it as you guessed it, a Christian. I do not separate my faith in Jesus Christ from anything that I do, so why would I forget that I'm a Christian just because I work in Lansing? My life and my faith are already one. I would suggest this same style to every Christian. The two are not able to be separated.
Amen.
Okay? Tonight, that's where we start. I know I do the same thing every single time. I don't talk about all the policies that I'm going to do, which are all awesome. You should just know that. But that's all. I just wanted to say that. A lot of you guys already know who I am. If you want, you can come up and talk to me. But I just thought it was really appropriate, and I was kind of laughing to myself. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'll hand it off.
Personally, I'm rooting for him to be the next chairperson for the Perry County Field. I think he made a much better selection than the one. But speaking of which, Ben Geiger hasn't showed up. Can we start with commissioners now? Gary White, I'm looking right at you. And by the way, some of these people have signs out here. You're more than welcome to take one if you support them on your way out the door. I know that a lot of these candidates who are sticking their necks out would very, very much appreciate it. It gives a very good presence.
Gary White, the district, 6 entities, mayor.
Sorry, is that better? Yep. Okay. Gary White, 5th District County Commissioner letting there. If we have 99.5% attorneys that don't understand the Constitution, what do we have in judges that don't understand the Constitution? Probably more. So I appreciate Mrs. Henry today, making those statements out there. I'll do the best I can. If you have to be a county commissioner out there, I'm not going to talk a lot. Should the county own the front of court building down here, or should we have it for housing? That's one thing I heard today. I'm sitting there, wow, they shouldn't really own property. So that might be something that we need to really look at. Maybe I'll go ask a question or two. So I do have a couple things down over there. If you want to grab a sign, yard sign, use it, help out Carlton, Woodland, Castleton, Maple Grove, both villages there, Nashville and Woodland. So other than that, thank you very much.
Mr. Brandon Strong. Who, by the way, kept his school open even when the governor said it should be closed.
Thank you, Joel. That is true. Everybody looks like you're getting tired. I gave a joke last week here. So if you could stand up really quick, there's a small chant we have to do. My name is Brandon Strong. And I think, Kyle, I might get some help from you, Kyle, if you're good. But I think it was Let's Go. All right. So now that everybody's awake, you can go ahead and have a seat. I wanted to say, Beth is here, Candace are here. I had the opportunity this past Monday to sit in a Robert's Rule of Order training, which Candace sold it to me like it would be the funnest day of my life. And I went into it saying I'm going to fall asleep by about 8:45, and I can tell you that is not the case. It was a very, very, very good training. It was very interactive, and I just want to say thank you to both of you guys for setting that up. And even more important for me, we had a couple other commissioner candidates there. I went to the COW meeting the next day, and I had to laugh because they didn't use Robert's Rule of Order effectively. So many times. So I looked back at Beth a few times and just had to chuckle. So again, Brandon Strong, I'm running in District 1, which is the area around Hastings, all of Hastings, Charter Township, minus the city of Hastings, and then the west side of Carlton Township, and the north side of Rutland Township. So it's a very unique district out of everybody, but I greatly appreciate support. I certainly need it. And yes, I love hearing people tonight that actually took a stand over the last 2 years. It's one thing to talk, it's another thing to actually do it and have to live through that. If you don't know that stress, you don't know, right? It's one thing to say, oh, well, I didn't support this or I didn't support that. Don't worry, I'll talk over them, guys, we're good. But at the end of the day, those that actually took action and had their butts on the line, those are the ones that get my support, that hear me talk, right? Or get to listen to me, or I'll listen to them, excuse me. So I do have some signs over here, I know 5. Elvin's telling me he's gonna steal most of them, so hustle up so I can always deliver some to him. But I really need the support, and I know there's at least one other good guy running in my district. And ultimately, I would ask that you look at what I've done, look what I stand for, look what I support, and give me your votes on August 2nd. So thank you, Joel, very much. Mr. Charles Hertzler.
Oh, come on. Right there.
We're waiting.
No. What? I gotta run for myself. Anyways, a lot of you know me already. I've been up here and talked a few times, and I decided to run for county commissioner because, like you, I'm tired of the county wasting our tax dollars. All right? There's so many things that we can do to make the money go where it needs to go. I personally, I've told you the story a little bit and stuff, but this just recently happened. I live on $1,800 a month, Social Security. All right? Guess what? Don't go so far today. I just gave up my home internet because I can't afford it and have food and gas. Can't do it. So you got to make the hard choices, which is what our county refuses to do. So I want to get in there and I want to be able to make the change. And one of the things I'm doing, I did stand up with him on quite a few of these events that we've had. I've been instrumental a little bit. And I also now am fighting with the city because they're telling me I can only have 4 yard signage in my yard. Code and compliance come out there and gave me, I got 6 right now. Okay? But like I told him, when I went to the county, when I went to the city a meeting up there, I told them guys up there, I said, look, if I have 1 for governor, 1 for attorney general, secretary of state, congressman, senator, myself, there's 6. So now if I do any local people like county drain commissioner, sheriff, I said they can go on and on. How can you limit me and my right to freedom of speech for 4 signs? You can't do it. So they come back after me because I still didn't take my signs down. So I told the gentleman, I said, look, don't bite, write me a fine, don't send me a citation, send me a court date. We're going to court. So that's the local thing, but that's what I'm going to do because they don't have the right to tell me how many signs I can have in my yard. All right, but then I would like your support, and she wants me to talk about John Gallagher. He's running in Middleville, but obviously he's not here tonight. He's just a good guy that we need to get in office. We need to change this county commissioner board. We got to get them out and get the good ones in there and make a difference with this county. Your tax dollars are important, and they can do better things with them than what they're doing now. Thank you.
For the last candidate that I see today, it's none other than Eldon Schellebarger. This person does not need an introduction, but maybe an explanation.
Go, Eldon! Woo!
I have to, there's my reasons why I have to. Well, that's all right, that's where I am. Of course, as you know, my name's Eldon Schellebarger. I've been involved in politics in this county. I was born and raised here, went to school here. You need to know some information, just come ask me. If I know it, I'll tell you. Yeah. And I'm running for school board. I've been at the school board, county commissioners since 1992. Been at this. I even got kicked out of a commissioners meeting. The commissioners took and went and got a PPO issued against me because I was a political threat to them. They got me kicked out of the meeting for 3 months. And yeah, so and then running for school board. Our school board definitely needs a revamp and an overhaul here in Hastings. Probably all the rest across the country too. They don't spend their money properly. We continue to lose student enrollment. They go elsewhere to school. I have 2. I have a great niece and a great nephew, and their family lives with me. They currently go to Delton to school because of the issues that we had with Hastings, and they needed extra help, but they didn't get at Hastings. And if you excel here, that's fine. If you have issues, you're going to be pushed pushed aside and you get whatever you get. But the reason why I'm running for school board is I'm going to try to make a difference, and I want to see a difference in our schools and how they're operated, and there's just too much spending money that is wasted. I also have some people who have endorsed me for school board. Our Sheriff Darley has endorsed me for school board, and also Gary Munson, and then also Rod Romine also has endorsed me for school board, and I'm hoping I can help make a difference in our school and how our kids learn, and to make sure that the kids who need the extra help will be able to get the help, because the children are our future, and I want to see that they get a proper education, and that they're because not everybody's going to be a doctor, not everybody's going to be a lawyer. We need our skilled trade classes and everything that the schools have forgot about, because they thought everybody was going to be a doctor or a lawyer and everything. And I think that we need to continue, because we are short-handed in the skilled trades, and we need to continue to move forward in that direction. Thank you.
Lastly, is Angela here? I forgot. Someone should have.
She left.
Someone should have thrown something at me.
She was tired a long time ago.
Okay. I'm going to say something that I know that I've already told some of the people in the room, but I'm going to say it again because I can. So, back in history, we have today what we call the right and the left. The left we can trace back to Thomas Paine, who was a U.S. patriot. The left back then meant, being liberal ideas. If you don't like something, well, you shoot them. And then you have the right, the father of conservatism, which his name was Edmund Burke, what many people associate with that. And Edmund Burke said a lot of things that I really enjoy when I read about him. One of the ideas that he had was that liberty without morality is one of the most dangerous forms of evil that man can ever know. And we have a right and we have a responsibility to pass both of those traits to our kids. Because with all the liberty in the world, if we don't have morality, we have anarchy. So that's something that has really sunk with me reading about him. But when you come to the term right and left, where that actually, I guess, really originated with, was in the French National Assembly. You had the president of the National Assembly who sat in the center. And if you were standing looking at him, you had the supporters of the king on the left, and the supporters of the resistance who sat on the right. Unless, of course, you were the president, then the right sat on the left and the left sat on the right. And unless, of course, you get to today's day and age where there ain't much left of what right and there ain't much right of what's left. So, France is the perfect example of liberty without morality. Morality is the weave that holds liberty together. Without it, we have nothing. Without faith, we have no morality. And that's why America has hung together as long as it has. And we're rapidly seeing the faith aspect erode. With that goes our morality. Without the morality, they're trying to legislate the effects of sin out of society. And it just absolutely cannot happen. And that's where I was saying, too, with the guillotine. It was the Committee for Public Safety that executed over 40,000 Frenchmen. That is when government becomes an inverse of its intent. And that's what's happening today. Whoever thought that you'd go to Myers and you'd be able to buy milk and cheese, but not garden seeds to grow your own vegetables? So a lot of people forget about that. I most certainly have it, and that's why I'm continuing to fight with all of my ability and resources that I have. With that said, we are over. However, I want to give, oh, go ahead. Yes.
Can I just make one announcement to the precinct delegate candidates?
Yeah, go ahead. And then we'll turn it over to Catherine in case anyone wants to stay for some Q&A.
Okay, because I've had a lot of questions regarding the ballot because, like, your name is on the ballot, but the rest of the ballot is not accurate. It's based on old districting. That is okay. You look at your own precinct delegate spot and just make sure that your personal name is okay and in the spot that it should be. And that is per the clerk's office.
We don't send it back there, they think it's okay.
As long as your name is okay under the right category.
And spelled correctly.
Yeah.
What?
And spelled correctly.
Right.
There's no other comments. I want to turn this over to Catherine real quick. If you guys have any questions, we're going to try and keep the questions and the answers as short as possible, if it's possible.
And the answers.
Yep.
So, what process do we need to take
Speak up.
if we want to get hand counts in our county? Do you have some feedback on what steps we need to take to go to our clerks? Do we have to go to the main county clerk, or is it by precinct?
County clerk.
So you want to know how to get hand counts at the election?
Yeah.
The Michigan law states the county clerk determines how the election is run and what equipment is used per county.
Okay, and so say.
Actually, no, that's not true. And the U.S. Constitution actually requires the state legislatures to set the time, place, and manner for elections and everything to do with that. The Michigan Constitution also requires that it's the legislature that sets the time, place, and manner for all elections. And this Michigan election law specifically delineates the Secretary of State to be the one who oversees all of that. No local election officials are ever supposed to make any decisions that modify the time, the place, or the manner of elections whatsoever. Because when you have local election officials that do that, and it makes it different from one place to another, it doesn't have the consistency and the, equal protection that the Constitution is set up to require that people have that equal access of voting. I mean, if you look at back many years ago, and it was because certain communities were charging a poll tax for people to be able to vote, or had made some other sort of barrier to be able to vote. So there could be legitimate reasons for having local officials make those decisions, but the reason why they put it in the U.S. and Michigan Constitutions was so that those things don't happen, so that everybody actually has legitimate equal access to be able to vote.
I don't think we're talking about the same thing at all.
You know, we have Whitmer now. All we're asking is, the ballots are gonna be counted by the tabulator, and just like at our GOP, we were challengers, we want them to be counted in the back at the same time, because there were a lot of problems.
I'm just saying local officials don't legally, constitutionally have the right to change anything.
That's not what I said.
Okay. Well, you asked me. That's my answer.
No, I was.
As far as the initial question about it, though, there was a time that I had everything on Michigan election law, no joke, memorized, not because it was fun, but it's been a while since I looked at Chapter 168. But as far as getting a hand count, honestly, I wasn't prepared for election-specific questions, so I don't know how to tell you the best way to do that.
Okay, right. Well, for example, at state convention, we had
a mess.
We had a mess, but we had hand count.
Yes.
Yes.
And Ruth Johnson, I believe, was behind leading that. or she was pressured in, I think she was pressured into it. But, so we did have hand counts and it was effective.
Yes.
So,
Voting in person was also effective versus voting by Zoom, but that's a whole other.
but does that set some form of a precedent for us to build on in our counties?
That, no. But as far as having legitimacy, I mean, that's why you have poll watchers, that's why you have, poll challengers. Actually, the Secretary of State's website has some great resources. I did a video on it recently. No, actually they do. I don't know if Benson put them together. But,
Not that smart.
well, remember though, she's smart.
She's smart. She's evil.
She's evil, but sometimes they put out tools they think they're using to help enable those to do evil. But actually, I mean, Whitmer's brief on abortion, by the way, is she wants to, stop abortion, enable abortion as a right. Her brief is one of the best briefs I've ever read because it lays the foundation for why you can't do mandatory vaccinations, you can't require masks. The government can't do all these things. Her brief literally lays the foundation for that in sometimes better ways than I ever thought of putting things together. I was like, thank you, Gretchen. I'm going to use that in briefs against you soon. But anyway, so they do sometimes the evil ones put out some good stuff. But anyway, they have, and I did a video about it maybe a month or two ago, trying to get people to sign up to be poll watchers and that kind of thing. In the video, or at least in that week, because Fridays then I try to give freedom fighting tools. So the video that week talked about things, then on Friday I gave some tools and some direct links to some of those PDFs that the Secretary of State has. But they have a lot of information about different rights that poll challengers have, or that just an individual who just wants to be a member of the public and watch the election process, all of that. They have a ton out there. I didn't read every single word to see if it's all legit, but from what I was able to look at, it was actually some good stuff. There might be some good tools in there to help you with that very specific question that I just don't know off the top of my head. So hopefully in my posts, or if you contact our website and say, hey, I was trying to look for this resource and you just don't see it, or on our social media, if you send us an email, hopefully we'll be able to get you connected with that. So. Yes.
So building on that, isn't that something that the legislature should be working on as saying, okay, no voting machines and ballots?
You want them to use common sense?
Well, that'd be nice.
I wish you would have asked that question of some of the candidates that were up here, maybe one in particular, but yes, that would be nice. I would agree with that. Yes?
Regarding personal sovereignty, with the millions that are coming across the border now, and the fact that the border is no longer existing for the nation, how much danger is there in personal property loss because of these parties coming into our country and perhaps taking over property?
I was asked to speak at I'm a member of the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association, and they had an annual get-together presentation, whatever, held at Liberty University in Virginia in September of 2020. When I was there, I was blessed to be able to get to meet two sheriffs that were from counties in Texas. And my husband was born in Texas. I've never been there, but I love Texas because, well, I love guns and I love my husband, so I figured. But they said that, I mean, and this was in September when Trump was president even, and they said it's, utter lawlessness, and people that are coming over are just, basically taking over people's property. There's, they murder outright, and, Border Patrol and all these other people that these agencies are not helping. They literally would go all the way back up to the freeway and say, what if they make it this far, and then we'll try to stop them from going further into the country. What? Anyway, there's a lot of risks and issues there, but it's, I think unfortunately more specific, more dangers to areas like Texas because just physically what's going on there. Yeah. But, I mean, obviously there's far-reaching implications as well. But. Sure, there could, I mean, I love the governors that are then turning around and busing the immigrants, illegal immigrants, over to, you know, Delaware or places where, you know, Biden lives, things like that. I love that idea. Did you have a question?
Yeah. You know, just listening to this whole fiasco with the Allegan County caused me to think on a broader scope. You know, we're in this whole process of educating, and you know, in part in reaction to the governor and the president and such. So we're getting fired up. We're understanding more. We're being empowered with knowledge. Yesterday, I was listening to a PragerU interview between Marissa Streit and someone. They were talking about the state of Texas being a fairly conservative place. However, you have Soros money funding the elections of various levels of judicial. And this, it makes me wonder about Allegan County. Can it be that we just can't get anywhere because we have puppet people on the various levels of judicial branch that won't accept legitimate cases of parents coming against what's going on in the education system, you know, ad infinitum. Is this potentially what you got going there in Allegan? And B, what's our step here? We're rooting out the swamp in the legislature. How can we root out the swamp this way too?
Well, didn't you know it's totally fine in Allegan County because the judges and prosecutors that have been doing this to me are actually Republicans.
Right.
So it's totally fine. Oh, sorry.
Target, that's all.
Oh, they knew, yeah. I was a target from before I stepped foot on that property, but it's a problem in every level of government, in every, you know, whether you're talking about local school boards, or whether you're talking about county commissions, or whether you're talking about the state legislature, or in the judiciary, all of them are problematic. We need to address all of the races. And basically, you need to team up with organizations to be able to spread your efforts and your energy and your resources farther. And you know, maybe you know, there could be an organization where you and two other people are focusing on your county commission meetings and reporting back to your group and figuring out strategies and what things are of concern and what are not. And you have another two people that are going to your local city council meetings, or you know, you have somebody that's going to the Board of Education, or you know, your local school board meetings, because you can't possibly make it to all the meetings at all, you know, everywhere. But you have to keep informed. And you can't say, well, I'm just going to focus on the state and then local stuff, that's fine. It's not really that affecting us that greatly. It's all affecting us. So it's just figuring out how to connect with people that care about their freedom and want to learn as much as you do, and trying to share that energy and the time and figuring out ways that you can focus and have an impact. There is no one right answer. Whether you want to focus on elections, and like with Ottawa Impact, they're doing a bunch of stuff, but one of the main things, they found candidates to challenge the Republicans, if I can even say that, who have been making all these terrible votes and putting disgusting literature on, you know, the website and things like that. They found just average people. I want to say the term average Joe, but my friend Joe is actually one of the main leaders of that, so it seemed wrong. But they found just real people who wanted to make a difference in Ottawa County, and they are making a difference. So whether it's just, you know, challenging people, you know, with judges it's a little bit different because there's more qualifications. You have to be an attorney and that kind of thing. But find good attorneys and encourage them to step up and run for judge. Attorneys are same, you know, have the same insecurities or same concepts, generally speaking, as everybody else. So they might be thinking, well, gosh, this doesn't seem right, but I can't really do anything, and I'm just an attorney. I don't want to tick off the judges that I have to sit in front of every day. I mean, I'm never going to do my clients any good. Empower somebody who knows that things are wrong to be the judge who's making the decisions. So it's really And the best people are most often the people that have never been in politics whatsoever. So there's not one easy way to address that or to answer that, but yeah, as far as what's happening in my case, none of the judges or prosecutors that have been involved, I don't even think they've read the Constitution. It's disgusting. So.
Are we under maritime law?
No.
But are we really under it?
No.
So then what's happening with our law, Constitution, and things that are happening to schools? What do you call that other than criminal behavior?
I call it that. It's just criminal behavior. I mean, right out the gate. And that's why we need to have things in place. What the Constitution didn't do, because I don't think they saw that this would be a problem enough that they had to spell out exact consequences. But instead of just trying to create all these laws about crimes for the people, and how do we punish people for doing this or doing that? And sometimes there's legitimacy. But instead of focusing on all that, why don't we focus on if you violate the Constitution, and you're someone who took the oath to support and defend that Constitution, there's some serious consequences, and it's an uphill battle for you. The government doesn't get to circle its wagons around you. That's what we need to focus on. That's one of the big things that my constitutional amendment petition was going to do. We just need to figure out more ways to make it happen. Yes.
So are you saying the way you went to school, you know the laws, are you saying something like us that don't know? If the Constitution, get that out, Constitution, to read that, know what the rights are, and to learn that, if they not get that, what about the people that still need help in Washington? Or said they have rights too.
You're talking about from January 6th? When Angela Rodriguez brought that up, I said, no, we can't talk about that. But that's another 3-hour conversation. It's wrong, but there's no simple. What that?
DC is a territory, and these people are being, denied U.S. constitutional rights.
Anywhere in the U.S., you can't be denied your God-given liberties that are protected by the Constitution.
But DC is a territory.
No. No.
They have their separate police, they have their.
It's not a territory, though.
What is it?
I totally forget the part of the Constitution that talks about it, but there's a portion of the Constitution that talked about its creation and what it is and all the rest, and why Congress sets rules and all that. But I don't want to get too far off topic with some of the other questions, but sorry, I'm trying to remember what you're. The best way that the average person can learn about the law is to start with the Constitution. Take the actual Constitution, start with the U.S. Constitution, and then go to the Michigan Constitution. Why? Well, because the U.S. Constitution has a lot less sections to it. The Michigan Constitution, Article 1, has 27 sections, and there are 12 articles in the Michigan Constitution. So make sure that you start with the actual language of the Constitution. Don't worry about what courts have said for years or what case precedent is. Just read the Constitution first and just apply common sense when you're reading it. And then read it again and read it a 15th time, a 50th time. Every time you read the Constitution, you're going to learn something new about it. But never be afraid or think that you're never going to learn it, as well as an attorney or judge or whomever, because me going to law school didn't make me know the Constitution. Me being, I'll say, a fairly successful attorney representing thousands of clients over the 20 years I've been in the legal field. I know I'm only 23, but that didn't make me an expert on the Constitution. Me reading the actual Constitution and thinking about what it says and applying it and going, okay, that's really what it means. That's what made me an expert on the Constitution. And that's, everybody here has the ability to do that. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but in case I didn't, I do a show every week, noon on Tuesdays, that you can access, through my website, or you can follow us on Facebook or Rumble, YouTube when it's not a super important topic, I guess, because I didn't put in time out a lot on YouTube. But at noon on Tuesdays, this week was different because at noon on Tuesday we were burying my mother-in-law. But since January, I started doing this noon on Tuesdays, where I cover a specific topic, and I want to just inform you and empower you on how to learn about that particular topic. So all these questions that have been asked, I've actually touched on all of these topics at some point since January. I also do a way to get involved on Wednesdays. Sometimes it's a little blurb, sometimes I do a whole video describing a way to get involved. Thursdays, we kind of do a recap of the pieces of the Constitution. We cover it in the full video on Tuesday. Fridays, I give you freedom fighting tools, because I like alliteration, and Fridays freedom fighting tools sounded fun. So I give you links, or, there was one time I told you to go buy the Black's Law Dictionary, but that was so that you're put on the same playing field as all the judges and attorneys and everything else. But every other time, it's a free resource I'm linking you to. And I give a biblical perspective on the topic of the week on Sundays. But at any rate, there's something there every day of the week to try to help you. So I am working on making the website better. My goal is, in my free time, to write this in a way that you can go on there and you can put in a search term and you can find the videos or you can find the documents that would help you for that particular question that you have. Until then, there's still a lot on there. It's just at this point, there's so much on there, it might be a little hard to comb through. But.
I want to thank you for this for tonight. I've got to go now, but I just want to thank you and say, I'm not fearful. A lot of people don't want to step out in fear of what's going to be.
God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
I don't know.
No translation.
Yeah, we should think about I hate to be the wet blanket.
Okay, so if any of you have questions I didn't get to, we will be slowly walking to our vehicle. And I would love to answer anything. Thank you. And if any of you are available to offer physical support in the Allegan County case I have, by being there whenever I'm allowed to have my next hearing for real, that would be great. I've already had $3,500 I've had to pay out of pocket to file appeals in my case. I just had to put out another $1,000 this week, yesterday. And the judge is going to deny it because she hates the Constitution. So then it'll be another $1,000 to go to the Court of Appeals and on and on. And we don't have those funds. So if you guys can donate at all, there's a spot on my website. And there's actually a button if you specifically want to donate to help with help cover the costs of those appeals. But I really appreciate all of your questions, and definitely you guys sitting and listening to Lauren and me talk about the Constitution for so long. Thank you, guys.
Is that done?